Hello, listeners. Welcome to Season 2 of the Masters Decoded podcast. I am Manish Merchant, the Chief Decoder. I want to thank you for the overwhelming response to Season 1. Your feedback and encouragement led me to bring you Season 2 of the Masters Decoded. The season will tap into how technology, artificial intelligence, and other socio-economic factors have impacted my guests' careers or passions. My next guest on today's podcast is Jesse Iwuji. Jesse currently serves the US Navy as a surface warfare officer, and he also professionally competes in NASCAR as a driver. Last year, Jesse started his own company in e-racing to capitalize on the growing interest in esports. Jesse is multifaceted and works with NBC Sports as an analyst covering NASCAR sports. Wow. So without much further ado, let me bring on Jesse. Hi, Jesse. Welcome to Masters Decoded podcast series. Really glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Great. And your profile is pretty interesting. And I was looking forward to this conversation. And you have a dual role today, which you're playing, or actually a triple role, or, multiple roles and multiple facets. You do professional racing, as well as you are serving in the Navy. So there are two critical roles which you have, and you are also a co-founder of an e-racing association, which I would like to double click. But let's talk about the first two key roles. One side is racing, and the other side is serving in the Navy. How do you balance the both, and how do you manage both?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting balance. I've been in the Navy since 2010. Prior to becoming a surface warfare officer, I was at the Naval Academy. I actually got recruited out of high school in Dallas, Texas, to go to the Naval Academy, play football there, and go to school. I graduated in 2010 and became a surface warfare officer in the Navy. So for those listening, surface warfare officers, what we do are we pretty much drive the ships. So I was on two different ships for my first 4 years in the Navy, and then when I transitioned from the ships to shore duty, I transitioned to Monterey, California, and I got to Monterey in about 2015, where I was on shore and I wasn't on the ships anymore. I wasn't deploying anymore, and while on shore, I had this crazy idea that I should become a race car driver while still serving in the Navy, and that's what got me into going that route. Now, at the time, I was trying to figure out how to balance it all. I still was active duty in the Navy. I was still doing my Navy job during the week, but I had the weekends off. So I used the weekends to really get this journey launched. And I started basically, I would fly out to different racetracks Friday night, race on Saturday, fly home Sunday, go back to work for the Navy on Monday. And I was balancing that every single week, where basically I didn't have a lot of off time at all. Even when I got home from my Navy job, I was always having to train on my racing simulator. I was contacting different potential sponsors to look for sponsorship. I was doing interviews. I was doing this, and I was doing so much and trying to balance it all. But in any kind of journey you're going on in life, it's not going to be easy at all. You're going to have to figure out how to manage your time, how to balance a lot of things at once, but it's all part of the journey, and it only makes you stronger.
That's impressive. And you've been at it for many, many years now. I know last year would have been a little different, but both these aspects, whether it's the Navy or the sports, the NASCAR specifically, I've seen the race, not in live, but on TV. They have certain level of adrenaline rush if you're sitting in a car or if you're driving a big warship. How do you balance that? Because, there is that tipping point which can take you off that edge. How do you still be on the edge? And that's something which is intriguing to me as a racer, as well as somebody who's in the Navy. How do you balance that edge?
Yeah, the edge is that's the tough part. That's what I guess separates the good from the great. The normal from the good. And finding that balance, it takes time. Because you're always having to figure out, okay, how do I perform at the highest level possible in everything I'm doing, but not overdo it to where you get burnt out or you're making mistakes or doing this and that. So it takes time of understanding. You definitely have to push yourself. That's for sure. As you're pushing yourself, you just got to find that line. And when you do find it, maybe you'll go over it. Maybe you'll go over it at first. Maybe you'll go over it quite a few times. But then eventually you find a way to kind of tame back and find a way to balance it where you can be on all these different sides and just kind of toting that line constantly. But that's what it takes to be really, really good at what you do and to be good at a lot of things, especially at once.
And talking about a lot of good things, the e-racing association, is it all about video gaming? And talk a little bit about that. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so E-Racing Association, it is all gaming. It's all virtual. It's all people basically using gaming to race against each other around the world without having to really actually be anywhere physically. You can be at home and race against people. And the platform, the software we used at first to get this thing going was iRacing. So iRacing has a great racing platform where you can simulate racing on there and race against your friends or anybody else in the world at any given time on the platform. So we use that to host the tournaments, but we are going to branch out a little bit and have more. We're going to branch out and have a Gran Turismo part of it. We're even going to have Mario Kart. And a lot of people have played Mario Kart, even if you haven't done iRacing, which is intense, maybe you played PlayStation and done Gran Turismo. But if you haven't even played PlayStation and done Gran Turismo, well, I'm for sure pretty much everybody has played Mario Kart.
Oh, definitely. Everybody has played the Mario Kart. I have played. I do compete with my son on Forza. I have an Xbox and I suck at it. My son is pretty good at it. So I'm sure he'll be happy to hear that, there are these platforms which he can. But how did that idea came about e-racing and e-gaming is becoming big across the world? There are competitions for first party shooters or strategy games and many more. But how did that idea come about to you?
Yeah, so the idea really came about last year. As we were going through the pandemic, as everything was kicking off, we weren't sure how real sports were going to be affected for the future. But what we did find out was something that everyone could do, no matter what pandemic was going on. At least at home, what everyone could do was, gaming, right? Esports was growing a lot. So with the esports world growing a lot, we figured, hey, let's start our own gaming tournaments where people at home can play against each other. But since I'm a race car driver, obviously I want to gear towards more of the racing side of things for gaming. But we started it. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to figure out a way to put on tournaments where people can win cash prizes. We wanted it to be something where even if you're not a professional race car driver, racing in real life on TV, getting all that broadcast time, getting, paid, all that stuff. Even if you can't become that, at least from home, you have a chance to race against people, broadcast it online streams, and at the same time, you get a chance to win cash money. And we've given out so far we've had 2 big events. Our next one is actually coming up here soon. But in the 2 big events, we've given away $15,000 cash to people who have been finishing in the top 3, top 5 of the events. So, people are actually winning money. I mean, this is life-changing stuff. There's people who have walked away with $7,000, $4,000, $2,000 checks, and that can pay some bills for some people. So we're just giving people the opportunity to compete each year in multiple events, win money, be able to use it for whatever they want. And from there, eventually, maybe we'll get even more people to compete, more people to come watch, more people who are watching to eventually start competing because they want to win the money too. We just want to give people a chance to feel like a pro.
Yeah, and the gaming world is becoming more sophisticated with more hardware and software and becoming intersected so much now with the mixed reality conversations where you can actually immerse yourself so much, and the quality of the games are also becoming pretty good today. I can just imagine how this platform will scale up. So what are the big plans apart from the tournament which is coming up on e-racing? What other things which are being wrapped around on this platform itself?
Yeah, so upcoming tournaments, basically what we try to do is for the iRacing tournaments that we do within our e-racing association, we usually try to do those once a quarter. That's kind of the aim right there. So far we've had 1 big event this year. We had one at the end of last year. We have another big one coming up here soon. And the next one after that will be in September. And then we'll have another one in December to close out the year. And on the Gran Turismo side of it, we're just getting that launched. We're hoping to have our first event for that one this summer. I don't know exactly what month, exactly what time we're going to do it, but we're in the middle of working out details on how we're going to broadcast it, how we're going to set it up, what vehicles we're going to use, what's going to be the prize money. We want people to actually win money. So we're getting all that stuff set up. And then on Mario Kart, we're going to get that going. Like Mario Kart will happen this year. Hopefully at least one or two events for Mario Kart. Same thing with Gran Turismo. We're aiming to have at least two more events throughout the rest of this year. But if we can get both of those going, it's going to really, really bring this whole thing to full circle where people on entry level can run Mario Kart tournaments. And then when they step it up to the bigger leagues, they can get to Gran Turismo. And then when they really want to step it up and really feel like a pro on a true simulation software platform, they can move up to the iRacing ones and win even bigger money. So we'll have step ups like that. And it'll be a really fun time for a lot of people. And we'll just have different levels where anyone can come in for fun and do it from anywhere in the world. Do it from your house. Mario Kart, grab a Nintendo Switch. You can be, sitting, I don't know, waiting on waiting somewhere, for pizza.
For a coffee.
For coffee or whatever you're waiting on. And you can have your Switch and be playing in a tournament. So we're just trying to make it fun for everybody, give everyone the opportunity to compete for cash prizes and money. And at the end of the day, even if you don't win, at least you're just having fun competing against other competitors who are all really good.
Sign me up for Mario Kart. I'm definitely playing that up for sure. Talking a little bit about the other side of your career, which is serving in the Navy, that entire process, people who are civilians like us have seen the different videos and y'all go through a lot from a training, from racking up those ranks and ensuring that not only your safety, but the people around you are safe. And, there are a lot of deployments which happen. I know there will be a lot of private and confidential stuff which you cannot reveal, but would like to touch upon either one of the deployments which have been memorable for you, which have probably etched you and defined you who you are today.
Yeah, I've been on two different deployments in my career, or two longer deployments in my career. I had a 10-month deployment to the Arabian Gulf. I had a 5-month deployment. During a 10-month one, I would say I learned a lot on both deployments, but that first one really taught me a ton because that was like the first time I was completely away from the United States of America for a very long period of time. Prior to that, I had been other places. I'd been to Spain. I had been to Nigeria. I've been to, some other spots, but and never for, 10 months. So it was a very long time to be away. So I learned a lot. I learned how to be a bit more independent. Learned how to manage all the stuff I had going on in life while being away. Learned how to survive out there, not saying that we were in bad conditions or anything. We weren't, but still it's different place, different culture, different everything. I mean, it's a completely different world out there. Yep. So learned a lot and had fun doing it. And then also too, during that time, I was working on all my different qualifications as an officer, as a surface warfare officer. So while working on those qualifications, I taught myself a lot of different ways to study, different study tactics, how to retain a lot of information, how to apply it, how to not only retain it, but just apply it. And all that I learned during that time allowed me to, I was able to transition some of that knowledge, some of those tactics, some of those skill sets to what I'm doing now in life, racing and NASCAR. So it's all been super helpful, but learned a lot and I'm better now because of it.
That's good to hear. Talking a little bit about your profession, and something which definitely intrigued me is that you are also an NBC analyst for sports. And being an analyst requires you to crunch data, to analyze games and understand different players, understand different things which allow them to perform better. So how do you get into that zone? Because, that the three avatars which are there, which is racing, being a Navy officer and being a co-founder and then being an analyst, there are 4 different avatars. How do you get into this avatar of being an analyst and crunching data and looking at a lot of other aspects?
Yeah, it was definitely a nice blessing to be able to have the opportunity to do it with NBC Sports. I had never really done it before this. We had some great connections through our network at NBC Sports, and they gave me the opportunity just because they knew I had personality. They knew I had a background in military, a background in racing, a background in a lot of different things where I could authentically relate to different things that were happening at the track. And I can use some of my past background experiences to make connections with some of the fans and the viewers who are watching these broadcasts. A lot of viewers who watch NASCAR are very patriotic. Maybe they have military ties. And so I use some of my military experiences to tie it with things on the track, just to relate a little bit more with the crowd, relate a little bit more with our fans, and just give them a different perspective from someone who maybe didn't come from the broadcast world. I didn't come really from the racing world. I started racing only 5-6 years ago. So all these different views that I was able to come in with, it was just something different, new light for everyone. And I had fun doing it, learned a lot, and, ended up turning out pretty decent.
That's great. And I hope you continue doing that, because that also would be keeping you entertained as we move along. But, looking at your career where you have 4 different roles, let's say if somebody has to do the same thing, like maybe same professions or different professions, what would be your advice to them? How do they manage these 4 different personas of themselves?
Yeah, when you're trying to manage a whole bunch of different big things at once, you really got to plan out your days well. You have to map them out and understand, okay, each day, you got to maximize, 17, 18 hours of that day. I usually sleep for about 6 to 7 hours each day. If I get 7, that's a nice day.
Nice.
But usually around 6 or so hours of sleep. But the other 18 hours of the day, you have to really, really focus on, mapping out the day prior to that, so you understand, okay, going into this day, this is what I need to get done. These are all, because you're not going to get everything done. There's always going to be work. There's always going to be more stuff to do. You're not going to get into one day and be, okay, we'll do all these things, and I'm not going to have anything else left to do. No, you're always going to have more stuff to do. If business and everything is going well, you're going to always have more to do. So just map out your days, write everything down. Say, okay, hey, and during this time block, I'm doing this. During this time block, I'm doing this. During this time block, I'm doing this. Make sure there's time in the day for you too. Make sure there's time where you can, eat. Make sure there's time for you to physical fitness. Be able to work out, run, whatever you got to do. Make sure there's time for you to also better yourself at whatever your craft is. Make sure there's like a training time. All this stuff. Make sure you manage your day to manage your day in the right way. You have to map it out early. Once you map it out in a way where you can stay consistent with it, then that's going to help. Because if you just map it out in a way that's not going to be very consistent, then you're just not going to last. But if you can map it out in a way where you will always be consistent with it, and something you can actually stay true to all the time, it's going to help you out a lot. It's going to help you get closer to your whatever success you're looking for.
That's a great tip. Probably some learnings for me as well, personally. But building on this further, do you have somebody whom you look up to as a mentor or a coach? Through your NASCAR, I'm sure there will be a coach who will be coaching you today, but is there a life mentor whom you look up to?
There's a lot of people that I've learned a lot of things from, especially some motivational speakers like Les Brown and Eric Thomas. Both of them really great motivational speakers and have a lot of great life experiences, but a lot of their different philosophies on how to approach goals in life and just how to approach life in general. I learned a lot from them. And from what I learned from them is kind of why I am the way I am now. I think I had a lot of that stuff already in me. It was just listening to them multiple times is what helped me completely understand and realize that it was already in me and I can execute and do all the different things that they mentioned.
Interesting. And how does family, friend, and the largest circle of influence support what you're doing? And how are they been enabling you as you move through this journey?
Yeah, family, friends is always very important, especially to have their support. By having their support, they not like they actually have to do anything. Most of the time, it's just more of they just need to not get in the way. That's the biggest thing. I think with anyone who has any big goals in life, your family and friends, they just need to be the positive light for you. All they need to do is give you positivity, continue to encourage you, continue to be, the person that you can vent to if you're having a bad day, all that stuff. That's all they need to do. The biggest thing is sometimes you'll see some families, some friends, out there who, their loved one is trying to go after whatever big goal, and maybe they're having a hard time, and family steps in, tries to keep them from doing it. It's like, don't get in their way, just support them, just be there and be positive for them. And that's all they need. Like, let them do their thing. They'll learn, good things will happen, bad things will happen, but it's all part of the process.
So talking about family and rewinding a little bit, you're not originally from US, as I understand. Your parents migrated from Nigeria, and I've done a little bit research on you. When you look at your childhood, Did you ever think that you would be doing this, what you're doing today? Was there a different plan in your mind? Like how's the childhood shaped where you are today?
During my childhood, I had no clue that I'd be racing in NASCAR or being in the Navy or any of that. While growing up, maybe when I got to middle school, I was thinking about college. At some point, I was thinking, okay, I'll play college football. I was thinking about that, but I had no clue that I would ever get to this point, racing in NASCAR. So, that dream of racing, that didn't really come until probably sometime around 2013 or 14 is when I really started thinking about it. Prior to that, I had never thought about it. Now, I was always into cars. I liked cars. I thought they're cool. I liked racing. I thought it was cool, but I just never had the thought of being a driver. That just didn't cross my mind. I didn't feel like it was something I was going to be able to do ever. I didn't think. And then all of a sudden one day it clicked and I was like, I think I can do this. I don't know why, but I feel like I can do this and I need to go do this. And I went and did it.
Interesting. Now, Jesse, I think this conversation has been amazing. I know you are super busy with all multiple schedules. This has been a far enriching conversation today. And hearing you just motivates, I'm sure, my listeners, including me, to think about not having one, but having multiple professions to, move life forward. Thank you for your time. This has been great. And I really, have had a pleasure to talk to you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. And hopefully some of the listeners got some good information from it. And, for those out there going after big goals and dreams, understand it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. You have to have faith throughout the whole time. And you have to understand that life will reward those who stay strong enough, long enough.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you for that great parting thought. All right, so you take care, stay safe, and be healthy.
All right, you too. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening in. And we close yet another episode of Masters Decoded. If you've enjoyed the episode, please, you can help us out by sharing it on social media. I would personally appreciate that. It's how we can reach more listeners, and the more listeners we have, the more awesome guests I can get in touch and convince to participate in these conversations that are a joy to have for me, and I hope they are a joy for you to listen as well. You can also help a lot leaving reviews on iTunes or your podcast service of choice. Reviews are surprisingly helpful in supporting the podcast to get to more listeners. If this episode has intrigued you, I would request you to subscribe to the podcast to stay up to date and get notified to the future episodes. With that, I bid you and see you in the next episode.